And one more time, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see agenda for today. So, as usual, we're starting from feedback from previous moderation session. It was Michael and Ishita. Anything you want to share, Michael, Ishita?
Nothing from my side.
I did a deep dive on a performance issue, which we'll talk about, I think, in the next topics.
All right, so we'll talk about it when we choose the next moderator for next week. So let me unselect you, Ishita. And there is not many of us today, so I'm trying to see who can possibly volunteer. Shlomo is not on that list, but he kind of qualifies. I mean, I'll just add your name, Shlomo, but that doesn't mean you must do it this week.
Secondary works for me. I'll not have a lot of time, but I could surely help.
Right.
Yeah, Alex, I suggested this new section in the document just for us to organize who's doing the triage and discussion for the week.
You mean
so last week I think we had Ishita and Michael, if I remember well.
Yes.
Right. So my suggestion is to take their names and move up to the done section. So at least we have an order of
who did it last time.
Who's doing what, right?
Yeah. I agree. So, right, and Ishita kind of suggested to do it second time. So now we know you just did it and doing it again.
Yeah, so then we rotate the whole list, and once the list is rotated,
And like if anyone else is there, it's fine. Like if no one is volunteering, I could pick it up.
All right, I'll join you, Ishita. I will try my best to answer as many questions as possible. Okay, I think in this case we're done and we can discuss the first topic. So I can actually open the Slack. Give me 1 second, maybe. Let me know, Michael, if you have something to present, I can do it, or I can just open the Slack and we all can see what the discussion was about.
Yeah, nothing really to present. Let's see, I'm trying to find, it's going to be a massive thread with like 400 replies.
All right.
Yeah, Prune's thread.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it?
Okay, we won't be able to read it, the whole thing. We will need your summary.
Yeah. So Prune noticed that around the time they upgraded to 2.9, they went from like 0.2 CPU on the controller to 2 CPU on the controller. And what we found was it's because something in GKE keeps replacing certain CRDs. It's like GKE managed CRDs, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense. And when you replace a CRD, the application controller, or make any change to it really, the application controller re-downloads the entire OpenAPI schema, the destination cluster, and reparses it and restarts all of the, I think it restarts all the associated watches. It ends up being a really, really heavy duty process. So my specific question was, is it actually necessary to restart the watches after a CRD change? Or is there something we can look at the CRD to say, oh, well, this change needs a restart, the other, others don't?
I'm trying to remember what the reason. I cannot say like it was strictly necessary. I think it was more like a precaution, because assumption was that CRD change is not a frequent event, and when it happens, you kind of want to make sure you re-download resources of that CR. But there was no bug that we tried to fix with this change. It's a first attempt, basically first implementation of this code had this restart. So I think it's open for optimization. Yeah, if we can avoid doing it, maybe it's a good idea.
Maybe there's the link to the
I-
actually does the research.
I'm a little bit confused. So do you think is it related to 2.9 or is it related just to GKE? So GKE is.
I don't think it was related to 2.9. If I recall correctly, I think Prune downgraded and didn't see any improvement. So I think it's just GK. And they did a GK upgrade and that basically got rid of the issue. So this isn't something really pressing that we have to fix. It was more just after 377, comments in the discussion. This was an interesting piece of information we wanted to run down.
But I think this is not necessarily going to restart everything. I think it will just go through all available API resources, and if it will make sure watch is running. So basically here we're just adding one more item into list, and here we're iterating through everything in the list and starting watch for pretty much just for this one guy.
Yeah.
So this will not restart. Maybe there is a bug. Maybe it.
Yeah, there's something weird there because when Prune commented out the start missing watches, CPU use went back down to 0.2. So we think that something in that function is
Okay. But okay, I mean, it sounds like we can just. Do you know is there a bug for it exists already?
I don't think any issue exists for it.
But at least there is super easy way to check, like on a minikube, kubectl edit CRD and debug. See what happens. I can give it a try as well.
Okay, I wouldn't put a whole bunch of time into it. Like I say, the GK upgrade got Prune unblocked.
Which version did they upgrade from?
Oh, good question. It's in that they may or may not have put the version numbers in the thread. I can't remember offhand.
But I know that this is expensive. This part needs optimization as well. Like we already thinking about making it lazy load. So right now this is required because we need API schema for kubectl apply. So it was expensive to load it for every kubectl apply because sync would use a ton of memory. Optimization, the first optimization was to just load API schema for each and every CRD and kind of have it ready for apply. Nowadays, people have more CRDs, and this no longer makes sense because API schema for each CRD uses again a lot of memory, and maybe we should improve it again and make load this part lazily only when it's needed for kubectl apply, and maybe if it was not loaded automatically on every kubectl edit of CRD, maybe it would be enough to improve. So it's either this piece is taking a lot of CPU or this, and this known to be slow. It's like this loading the API schema uses both CPU and memory.
Yeah, and I tried to write a quick optimization to like hash the entire schema and like skip parsing on hash matches. That actually used more CPU, I think, because the hashing itself was heavy enough.
Yeah.
It caused a problem. So I don't know.
I know that this is for schema validation, right? For kubectl.
Yeah, it's just to validate on the client side.
And I think Kubernetes recently moved to server-side schema validation by default.
Yeah, maybe
that's something we could move Argo CD to as well, right? And we wouldn't have to have knowledge about the schemas because the server would make the schema validation.
Yeah.
But I'm not
Mhm.
sure what kind of side effects that would have in terms of Argo CD, right?
It's also used for server-side diffing. IPS schema used. It has defaults, and we apply these defaults to compare on service to diff on server side. So yeah, we still might.
It is used during server-side apply.
Mhm.
Currently working on a new feature called server-side diff that would do something similar than what Jan mentioned. So
Mhm.
we wouldn't need this anymore. So this is a work in progress. I'm
Mhm.
planning to push this PR this week or next one,
Mhm.
and that's going to be ready to review. But it's going somehow in this direction.
Mhm. And I think lazy loading is not so controversial, right? Even if we plan to get rid of it completely, we still can make this part loaded, when it's actually needed. I'm asking because it's like something like we have a cycles, and this is part of the cycle because we have customers who needs improvement. And I heard about the same from Jan, so just heads up. So I think I'll be sending.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it would be great to have this as some sort of a gradual implementation, something like we go and validate the server-side diff, see if that works, addressing the diff logic, and if that is the case, then we can make that in future releases a default diff calculation method, and totally remove this from the code. I mean, this is something that we can target, I think.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, Michael. Is there anything else you want to discuss about this issue?
Nope, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I had few topics added here. It's kind of from less controversial to more controversial. First, I think I wanted to collect feedback about two improvements that been requested long time ago. One is support post-sync hooks, and second is to support sync timeouts. I'll start from the hook. Idea is to basically just introduce yet another annotation on the resource. And so let's say a user should be able to annotate a job with something like Argo approach.io post delete hook. And Argo CD would, before it deletes application, it would run the job, make sure it's healthy, and then remove the application. And I guess I'm asking, is there any objections?
You use the word controversial. Can you elaborate why?
I think this is not controversial, in my
Right.
opinion. This is easy. This is
Okay.
and this is easy, and this is controversial. I will get to it. And
Okay.
I started from a simple one.
I like this. I do wonder, can we implement it in such a way that even if I kubectl delete, like a finalizer will make sure that my post delete hook is
Yeah. I think it must be finalizer. It's literally like just a. So currently, finalizer is just for a loop that delete a bunch of resources. So it would be one more, few more lines in that for loop. So we would need to create the hook and then try to delete it. Plus, I think we will have to replicate all the hook behavior. So hook. Actually, no, never mind. Application is deleted just once in the application lifecycle, so there is no need to like recreate hooks. So it is actually. I hope it's a simple change, at least in terms of implementation. There is not much to do. Just create hook once and wait for.
nice. Only other thought is, can we safely translate the Helm post delete hook into this hook and like everything will behave as expect?
Okay, it's a good question. I think I would answer yes. I like it. I think it's been requested many times, so people will be happy that one more Helm hook is supported.
That sounds awesome to me.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks for feedback. Next, I think is easier. Just a sync timeout. I've heard about it from many users. Yeah, idea is to introduce a timeout, and so Argo CD would supposed to automatically terminate operation if it's taking longer than certain amount of time.
Yeah, I don't think I have any concerns.
But I was wondering, like, what would that be good for?
I think it's like, okay, the use case why I'm even wanted to discuss like these two improvements plus propose one more. So the users I'm trying to help is they are trying to use autosync efficiently in an automatic. Basically, they building preview apps experience for developers when developer create a pull request, and then Argo CD is supposed to create application using application set, and then what is not working currently is when you're creating pull request, it has bugs, and sometimes maybe application cannot start and sync. Let's say sync has waves. In this case, the sync would never complete if application doesn't start. And so, and then expectation from developer that they should be able to just make a code change, application set updates the application, and then it needs to be synced again with new image. But current behavior is failed sync, kind of stuck forever. And so timeout would help. At least it would not be perfect, but at least it would not, it was kind of the issue would self-resolve after, let's say, 10 minutes. The sync would terminate, and then autosync would finally notice the new commit, and it would retry, but with the new commit, and so it would sync again and hopefully don't stack. That's one use case. So it's kind of in combination with autosync.
Mm-hmm.
A use case I saw actually just like 2 days ago. Someone at Intuit ran like they had a new app, and we used Jenkins to run Argo CD app sync. And when it ran, the ingress for whatever reason, which was in like sync wave -1, never became healthy. So 13 days later, they looked back at it and the sync was still running, but the ingress was long gone. Something else had come and cleaned it up, or someone had manually deleted it. Anyway, there's no indication of why their sync had failed. And another sync couldn't start because there was an operation already in progress. So timing out, I think, would be helpful for us for that use case.
Actually, maybe do you mind if we don't have to make decision right now, but the second proposal, in at least it's kind of related to use case that's similar to ingress. So idea that if it's kind of optimization to timeout. So it's a smart timeout that is tied to resource known to cause issues, I guess. So basically a user could say, this is my timeout, but if this particular resource stuck in a progressing state for like 1 minute at least, I want to terminate now because I know something is wrong. So that's kind of related to what you described. Like the user could say, yeah, normally my sync, maybe it's taking like 20 minutes because it has many waves and so on, but I know this resource, it syncs quickly if everything goes smooth. And if it's stuck, then just stop quicker. So that's why like these two kind of related. So this is the basic one. And second one is it's the attempt to, it's like optimization. Yeah, and in my use case, like the use case that I know I was trying to help to solve is, there is a job, and that job, usually when everything's fine, it just executes and it's, it completes quickly. If it's stuck, that means there's a particular well-known problem happening, and kind of this additional setting, it would help to detect it quickly and just terminate sync, and next auto sync would pick up a new change with the fix and finish what developer wants to do.
But
yeah.
I
Go ahead.
I was wondering, like, isn't that something you could already set on a resource, like a job or like a deployment, like progressing deadline or something like that? You can like a deployment that fails to succeed, right? Like the pod can't be scheduled, for example. Kubernetes tries to schedule that pod until, I think, there's kind of a property for the deployment that says progression deadline, something like that. And after a couple of, like, after that progression deadline is exceeded, then the deployment just goes into fail state, right? But that would only be for deployment, and probably for job as well, but not so much for ingress, I guess. Like,
actually, I didn't think about. I think you're right. The job maybe has it already, so I need to ask. I have a user to ask. I will ask him. I will ask, why it was impossible to. I'm kind of trying to Google right now what exactly job has. I think it has something. Oh no, it doesn't actually. I mean, the first answer on Stack Overflow doesn't have it, but maybe I need to look.
yeah, we don't need to like figure it out right now.
But it's a good.
I was just wondering, but I do like that. I mean, like a progression timeout. I wonder if that could be implemented in a health check as well. But
okay. Before we finish this one, I think I was assuming this is easier. Like we can commit easily to it. Maybe not in the like in general. Any objections to have timeout and I would. My plan was to try to create a pull request and basically discuss details, like what exactly how policy should look like. And so I guess the feedback I'm looking for, do you think any objections? Anyone thinks it requires official proposal document, or is it okay to just create pull request and then discuss how the setting look like exactly in the pull request? I'm kind of open to whatever. It would not be too much work to create a doc.
Yeah, I think we should be a little careful where exactly to put it. Like, just not that it gets too excessive in the sync policy, and but maybe it would also make sense to have it in the retry block.
So
I'm not sure, like,
maybe merge these two into a single proposal and then discuss. Yeah, I can just lay out like several options, because it's kind of, when you talk only about timeout, it sounds very trivial. Just have a single field, but because most settings kind of fits into the same category, I can start from a proposal document and with like few options. Maybe it belongs to timeout, so retry. Maybe it's a new, like here I'm proposing terminate, need to fix indentation. But I'm glad to hear no strong objections in general.
No, yeah, I think it's a good idea to have like a timeout. I have a similar, like not a similar, but a related issue to that,
Mhm.
because when a sync is stuck in a retry loop, right,
Mhm.
it will never pick up any new change from Git, even if you have like, because the retry will always,
Yeah, it tries the old kind of.
yeah, it always tries the commit that was initially, the
Mhm.
sync was initially started with, right? And that also blocks kind of autosync if you if you made a mistake in your Git source
Mhm.
and you have autosync enabled with endless retry. Even if you commit to Git, it will never fix itself. Right?
Mhm.
It just won't. It will basically be stuck in that retry loop forever because it will never go and refresh the application. So
I know there is kind of the problem is retry applicable for both autosync and sync. So currently, when sync is running, it doesn't really know what was who triggered it. And so if it was a user, we also don't know if user chose a branch or a commit try. Basically, we kind of lacking metadata. Like we don't know what the intention was when someone triggered sync. So I think to address the problem you're describing, like we need to add a bunch of fields in a sync plus additional field in the retry configuration, I guess. Yeah. Like right now, it's just impossible to when sync started and retry.
yeah, I know what you mean.
Mhm. I think, yeah, I kind of like my own proposal to create a doc, and then I guess
Yeah.
if we discuss it, you can also suggest to put those additional fields in if it's appropriate. You know, if it was related to like timeouts and termination, maybe we can try to.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, thank you. I'm unblocked. Yeah, I think I know what to do with those three. So, well, this we can just implement, and this requires a proposal, at least so we know, you know, where to put those new fields. All right, and we just got one more topic from Mitch. So I'm going to open issue, and Mitch, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, this is just something that came out of a few meetings ago, right? Where people were caught by surprise by a feature being deprecated.
Mhm.
So we discussed that this was potentially a better pattern to adopt for it. So yeah, I was looking if people had any feedback, or do we just move forward with it, or just sort of drop the topic? That's all. But I realize actually, sorry, that this probably isn't the root one, but that there's the top level 248. But yeah, so it's the same thing. So do people have any comments on that? Do we like that idea? Do we not like that idea?
And I think that it was about config management plugins, right?
Yeah, in this case, it was config management plugin, right? But I
Mhm.
think it's happened in other cases as well. People are just caught out. Because a warning in a log isn't necessarily going to catch their attention.
I haven't. Maybe we can make a decision in, with like a particular change in mind. I know we have this old way of resource tracking and new way, and I think we are like a long time overdue to switching by default to a new way, and eventually we need to deprecate the old way. So I hope people understand what I'm talking about. So it's resource tracking based on label versus attribute.
Okay.
And then if we do it, I would do it this way. Like I would by default switch to a new way, and it will code like when upgrade, people will notice. It will be very noticeable because it's the kind of a big change for everyone, and then so I will have a warning and switch, in one release, just have a warning in the code and switch by default to new behavior, then disable it and then remove it. Like disable the old way and then remove it. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that way at least people, it'll right away it'll make it very clear when it stops working. They'll come looking why. Then they'll see, okay, well, at least I can re-enable it, but then there's there can't be any issue of not being aware that this was going to happen as a thing. So I guess the question is, do we want to adopt this as just like policy going, like as the way to do it going forward, or do you just want to do a test run with this one feature? I mean, that's totally valid as well. It's more just I guess almost a process question that does Argo project want to adopt this?
And I'll throw out an alternative. In my opinion, we should just use Simver. Like version numbers are cheap. When you see a major bump, people do know that they should look for deprecations in the change log. Things like updating the annotation or updating to annotation tracking by default. There's an entire list of stuff I put in a milestone for 3.0 that we should do. I think it's time to start planning a 3.0 and honestly a 4.0, because there's a bunch of stuff that we won't be able to do in one big major version release. I think we should just start looking at doing a 3.0.
I know in the past we used Semver as a marketing tool. So we would lose it. If we just start bumping major versions, then you never can have a big splash around 3.0 or 4.0 because it kind of changes meaning. So I would discuss it in like one more time in maintenance meeting.
To be honest, I prefer Michael's suggestion, but yeah, I mean, it seems that we haven't been using Semver because I guess like you say, it's a marketing tool to have a big splashy number.
Yes, exactly. Like 2.0 had no breaking changes comparing to like 1.10.
Yeah.
But it was a big thing because we just added a bunch of features and we felt like, oh, it's a good opportunity to kind of.
Yeah.
I think we can get a similar splash by grouping and theming features and just focusing really hard on the features.
Yeah, that's fair comment, but it's just I'm just asking to discuss it like one more time. I would not. I think it's not mutually exclusive. Like if let's say today we have a release and we want to make a big change. Regardless of what number here, I would still do it this way. I would put a warning, then just disable it just to force people to kind of notice it. It cannot go unnoticed because they must make an action. They must re-enable the thing. And then, when they re-enable, they look into documentation, read the warning saying you won't be able to keep it enabled forever. And then here you maybe bump a major version.
That's the part I like related to this proposal, because it gives room for the users to react, right? Instead of just implementing the breaking change as Semver, it also cares about our users. So this is a good plus on this proposal. I like it. So maybe having a little bit of both would be ideal.
I agree. I think I was also trying to say
the thing I found strange about going straight up with Semver is that we'll increase the major version every time we deprecate something, right? So
I don't see that as a problem, except for the marketing problem. Like
yeah, exactly. So usually when people see the first digit to increase, they expect to see a lot of features and stuff. So increasing every time we deprecate something might sound a bit strange, but that's my only concern.
I know people import Argo CD as a dependency. They will care too, because they will have to do, find and replace every time we bump version.
I think I'll push back on the idea of having sort of the disabled but re-enableable state. I think that should probably be the case for particularly invasive changes, but that does come with significant maintenance overhead, both in code, like you've got to maintain that new flag, and also just in support, because people are going to ask questions about, okay, now I got to flip this. Things are much simpler if you just do a hard cutoff and deal with the impact of, well, some people are upset because it surprised them.
I mean,
That's fair.
it's like there's what we're ultimately talking about here is the best way to communicate deprecation, right? Like we either communicate it with a version number, we can communicate it with disabling, enabling, and a feature flag, or there might be another way to communicate when you're using deprecated features. Right now, I think it just shows up like essentially in logs, which is like, if you're not looking at the logs, you didn't notice it. But we talked about a feature that would basically be flagging that an application is using deprecated features somehow. That was like another idea. Would be like if you looked in Argo and you saw like, oh, I have like 3 apps that are using deprecated features. Now I need to plan on that. I need to think about that. Because really it's like the issue of getting caught out is that people aren't aware that the feature is deprecated or that they're using the feature that's deprecated.
Yeah, I kind of, when you described it, then I was thinking about sophisticated flag that kind of gracefully handle. But basically I've realized that what if we just, when we create this type of flag, all it does is at the moment of, when Argo CD starts, it check for that feature and just crashes the application. So it can be very cheap check. It can be like literally every time Argo CD notices it crashes in a notable way. So as soon as someone upgrades and has the deprecated disabled feature, it results like in a downtime, and then user can quickly re-enable it and kind of continue. So
just as a way to draw attention.
Yes,
Like,
but don't put too much effort into it. So
as opposed to maintaining the 2 features, like, okay, yeah, I mean that seems okay as well.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that does mean downtime, right?
I mean,
Doesn't mean
it's
crashing.
I guess you're choosing between this and this, like you're switching to a new version, and it's not a downtime, but like it's even worse. It doesn't just things are not working, and of course users supposed to read the warning. Like before someone upgrades, they're supposed to look. My guess is currently people do not read upgrade notes, and they just upgrade to a new version, and then some applications stop working and they have to roll back because there is just no intermediate state. And we might introduce this intermediate state. As soon as they upgrade into this intermediate state, it's a downtime unless they read instructions, and they don't have to roll back. They just need to flip the flag and enable feature again.
I remember that we had like I remember this discussion that it was also like exposing those deprecation warnings more visible, like in an application condition as a warning, maybe, for example. I mean,
I think it's Michael don't like it, if I'm not mistaken, because then it's like a whole effort. It's like every time we deprecating a feature, we need to think like how exactly are we going to show it as a condition, or is it like a banner if it's a system level feature? And I was trying to propose a compromise my compromise was to crash, crash in a feasible way, kind of maybe just like make controller restart and.
I mean, we like. I know that maybe Kubernetes may not be the role model here, but I mean they deprecate and remove APIs on a regular basis as well. What are they doing?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is like how where it says warning this feature will be removed, like where is that warning and how is that bubbled up? Because if just speaking from an end user standpoint, like if I have to dig through logs to see that, like I'm never going to see that.
Yeah, I think.
Whereas like if I use like Argo CD CLI or kubectl, if that like pops up, kind of like I think beyond what you were talking about, like, you know, in Kubernetes, like when I use something that's going to be deprecated in future releases, when I use kubectl, that's like popped up usually on the CLI.
Right.
And I know, so so I guess that would be my question, is like how are we warning them on that first step? So the proposed thing, I think it's fine. The feature flag is fine. I think that's good. But I'm still more concerned about like how are we warning them, because that information sounds like it's not reaching the end user.
The truth is, I think Michael's proposal is the best. I mean, if Argo project as a whole could adopt Semver, there's nothing. I mean, I've seen other projects do this as well, right? There's literally nothing stopping from doing a marketing splash around 3.2 by highlighting the features of 3.2 is bringing to the table. Especially if just the project is vocal about, well, we're going to start respecting Semver because it really makes life easier for all the end users, right? It's very clearly going to be communicated, hey, we're breaking something, you really got to look at the changelog here. Versus, you know, we're introducing something that's backwards compatible and shouldn't break anything. Who makes the marketing decision here? Sorry, Michael.
Sorry, I'm just thinking back to CMP deprecation. We picked a time where we wrote in like the upgrade notes, we're going to deprecate it. And then that wasn't enough. So a couple releases later, we're like, okay, now we're going to add logs. We're going to add this thing in the UI. A couple releases later, people are still uncomfortable bumping it. So we're updating the UI. We're updating the upgrade notes. People are confused. Managing a single deprecation with all of that communication is a nightmare. Managing 3 simultaneously is Herculean. I think that we already have an awesome mechanism for communicating to users that something's going to break, and it's just the version number. Everyone already understands that. We get that for free. If it's a marketing problem, we just make a few more plushies.
Where can I get one of those?
A plushie with the deprecations in the back, right?
Your plushies come with deprecation warnings, just like a little scroll.
Well, even if it was the Semver, I still would need to look in my logs and stuff to see what's deprecated.
Well, it would be in the changelog, right? We'd call it out for sure in like
it's already in the changelog.
In the change, but this communicates like, hey, you need to pay attention to the changelog, right? Like, yes, we know responsibly everyone should be looking at the changelog every time, but reality is clearly people don't, right? That's why this topic came up even, right? Because it was breaking for people. It's just the unfortunate reality, right? For whatever reason, we won't dive into that if people don't. But like it's been pointed out, right, Semver is pretty acknowledged, pretty accepted. If we communicate like we're now adopting, you know, going forward, the project will adopt Semver, it just adds that layer of like clarity around that. Like nobody can say they were caught out going from 2.x to 3.0. You really can't come and complain, oh, you deprecated this thing without sufficient warning. Like if the product is very clear, like we follow Semver, we're bumping the version number, we have broken something that you might rely on. That's on you. Versus like, I didn't see a log warning and I'm going from 2.6 to 2.7. You know, because people might not even realize that we don't adopt Semver, right? They see versions with point numbers. It's reasonable to assume, and we do patches, right? So there is some level of semverness already in what's being released, right? We do patches like 2.6, 2.61, 2.62, for example. So this maybe goes all in on semver. Yeah, we're semver-ish, exactly.
Yeah, the only
so-
aspect I think Semver doesn't provide is time to react, right? So it might be too late for our users to understand that, okay, I'm using a feature that is now removed, and now I need to change all my applications to do something else, and it's already too late. So
well, I think it's
sorry to
changed.
interrupt, guys. We're
having
running.
some sort of a notification to the user somehow in the CLI or in the UI, provided as some sort of a framework that is easily maintainable. Maybe this is one direction we could go as well.
And sorry to interrupt you. We just ran out of time. I propose to maybe discuss it in the next Tuesday in a maintenance meeting. There will be people from all projects. We can at least talk about see what like workflows team about accepting Semver.
Cool. I'll add it to the doc for the maintainer meeting.
Thank you. Right, and yeah, we're already 5 minutes over, so I want to be just mindful about everyone's time. Thanks for bringing this topic, Mitch. I think maybe we should keep it and just continue discussing in the next.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
All right, and I think it's time to finish today's meeting. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
see you next week. Bye everyone.